Good morning, students. Okay, today I'm going to start my first topic of class 9 in history, that is the French Revolution. If you go back to the history of class 8, before I start the topic of French Revolution, you have to understand what all we have done in class 8 and what significant role it had played in the lives of people. Like if you go back to class 8, we have discussed about the topics like revolt of 1857, national movement in India, all these ideas which people gathered about equality, liberty, fighting for the country. These legacies have been given to the people of country from the French Revolution. So before I start the topic of French Revolution, you have to understand what revolution is. See, revolution, revolt, movement or war has got very less difference between the terms and the meanings. Revolution, you can say, is a drastic change in the society. Now, this drastic change is a huge change. It can be in terms of economic sphere, it can be in terms of political sphere, it can be in terms of social sphere. Here, the people of France also, they wanted to change the economy and polity of the country. This was the main reason for the starting of the revolution. Now, suddenly, the people, they started thinking that why we should start doing the revolution. So there are reasons behind it. Now, whenever any war is fought, any revolt is taken place, or any revolution is started, there has been the causes behind it. So first we are going to discuss about the causes. Now these causes we are going to discuss in two divisions. That is, it can be long-term causes or it can be short-term causes, or you can say immediate causes. Now for that, if you refer back to class 8 revolt of 1857 and aftermath, we have discussed in the same manner. We discussed the long-term causes, that is the political causes, the social causes, religious causes, economic causes, and then there was an immediate cause for the starting of revolt. Now, when we come back to the French Revolution, the most important date, I would just like to introduce that date with you, and then we will further go back to the causes of the revolution. See, before we proceed towards the chapter, it is very important for you to understand why the people of France decided to have a revolution. There was no revolt, there was no war, there was no movement. But because the suffering of the people of France was so much that ultimately there was a threshold, they were fed up, and then they decided to change the system, the governance of the country. So before we'll proceed towards the chapter, you can see in this figure, storming the Bastille. Now, all these things are very new for you. What is storming? What is Bastille? So, first of all, I would like to introduce to you what is Bastille. See, Bastille was the fortress prison of Louis XVI. Now, the second question arises, who was Louis XVI? Now, Louis XVI was the ruler of France. From 1774, he was ruling the country. When he became the ruler of France, he did not got very satisfactory treasury of France, or he did not got the satisfaction of people. That I will discuss with you off lately when we will discuss the causes. Before that, I would like to discuss with you this small thing, the date of, you can see in second bullet, that is 14th July, which is also called as Bastille Day. So Bastille was the fortress prison. Now, this fortress prison was a prison which was there in Paris. You can see in the figure also that a lot of people have been gathered outside this fortress prison. And people, they did not like this prison. Why? Because they did not like the ruler. See, when you don't like the ruler, you don't like the belongings of that person also. Similarly, people hated Bastille. And that was the reason. Why? Because it was considered to be the symbol of the despotic rule of Louis XVI. So, 14 July 1789 was the day for the starting of revolution. And this day is now being celebrated as the Independence Day of France. Now, what happened on 14 July was just, you can say, an immediate cause. But there were reasons. Of course, there were long drawn reasons why the people of France wanted a change in the governance in the society. Here I would just read out to you. Rumors started that Louis was going to use military force to dismiss the National Assembly and that foreigners were coming to attack Paris. Students, we are going to discuss about the storming of Bastille in detail. But why I put this reference to you? Because when you will open up your NCERT textbook, class 9 ebook, you will see that the first page of the chapter tells about the storming of the Bastille. So it was very important for me to introduce this storming of Bastille along with the topic which we are going to discuss in detail. Okay, now this Bastille was attacked by the people of France, and the fragments, the pieces, the broken stones which were there of the Bastille were taken back by the people of France. They kept it as a souvenir. Souvenir means something which can be kept as a memory. And students, one thing I would like to tell you, that they didn't wanted to keep this as their very fond memory, but as a bitter memory, because they have not forgotten the unjust, despotic rule of Louis XVI, who was the ruler of France the time when French Revolution took place. So again, I will just like to tell you one thing. The day of French Revolution was 14 July 1789. Now, if we have to go in detail about that, we have to understand the causes behind it. Okay, now the French Revolution begins. Here it is given main idea. As I told you, there is a difference between revolution and revolt. Revolt may start for one day, it may end in few days. Like revolt of 1857. It started on 10th May, 9th May from Meerut, 10th May to Delhi, was ended, recaptured ultimately by the Britishers in few months or maybe a span of year. But the revolution, people develop the ideas because they know that they are fighting lot of economic, social inequalities. So the main idea of the French Revolution was that there was lot of economic and social inequalities which were there in the old regime. Now this is a very new term for you, old regime. Old regime, old means, you know the meaning of old is old. Regime means rule. So the old regime means the rule of the ruler, that is Louis XVI in France before 1789. Because after 1789, Louis XVI was forced to give away his powers and his other priorities or other benefits or privileges which he was getting. Okay, now why it matters? Here is a very important thing, that throughout history, whether you take the history of our country India, or you can take the American War of Independence or any other history, throughout history, economic and social inequalities have at times led people to revolt against their government. You can take example of our own country, wherever people feel that yes, some kind of inequalities have been done by us. Take the example of India. The people will decide that next time they are not going to vote for the same government. They don't want the same government back again. Why? Because of these economic and social inequalities. The reason being because the constitution, the rule book of the country says that everyone is equal. Now, when we say that everyone is equal, this equality has to be in terms of economy, in terms of social, in terms of polity, and any other term. So this was the reason, this was the idea, the economic and the social inequalities. Okay, till here you have understood. Now I would like to explain, as I told you, what is old regime is the social and political system of France in which there was a rule of Louis XVI till 1789. And under this system, now this is very important, that under the system, the people of France were divided into social classes or estates. So here I would like to focus on the group of people, the kind of people which were divided among the society. See, this is very important to understand the concept of entire chapter. So first thing is that the society of France before 1789. 1789, why? Because this was the year of the French Revolution. So before the starting of French Revolution, the French society was divided into three estates. In common notion, estate means group. Three groups. Like in our country, we can say we have got poor people, we have got middle class, and then we have got high class people. So the division of society is not by nature, but by the human beings. So here also this division of society was not given to them by the nature, but by their own human beings. So how that division persisted, that we are going to discuss once again. So you can see there were three divisions of society. This you have to focus very, this is very important concept. As we can see in this flow chart, the first estate was of clergy, second estate was of nobility, third estate. Now you can see the subdivisions in the third estate consisting of big businessmen, merchants, court officials, lawyers, etc. Among that, only below the big businessmen were the peasants and the artisans, and below that were the small peasants, landless labor, servants. So let us talk about first estate. Now here you have to understand what is clergy. C for clergy, C for church. The people, those who belong to church, they came in the first order or the first estate of the society. Now in the modern world, you must be astonished. You must be astonished to know, or you must be wondering that why these people were given so much of importance, because in present day, we follow secularism. We don't give any importance to one person over the other person. But we are talking about Europe, the time period when church was considered to be the most important institution. It was considered that these clergy, these people of church who belong to Roman Catholicism, were considered equivalent to God. This is how the message was spreaded to the people in medieval Europe, that the people, those who belong to church, there may be priests or the other people, those who are serving in the church, they were equivalent to God. It is considered that they are the chosen messenger of God who has been sent by God to look after the people. So people blindly followed these clergy people. So this was the first estate, that is the clergy. I hope it is clear. Once again, what is clergy? Who were clergy people? The people, those who belong to church, the serving the church. They may be priests or other officials who were working in church. Now second estate of people, the second group of people were the nobility. Now these nobility people were again the aristocratic people, you can say, or they belong to the royal family, or they were the near and dear ones of the kings. They were the near and dear ones of the king who believed that if we will please the king, we will achieve what we want. Okay, so they were not interested in what was the welfare of the people or what was good for the people. They were only interested in their own well-being. So they were the second class of people. Among the third estate, there were three other different classes of people. One were the big businessmen, the merchants, court, official lawyers, etc. Then second were the peasants and artisans. And third were those who were not having any kind of land with them, that is the landless laborers or the servants. Now, next thing what you have to understand is that among the three estate of people, okay, although 90%, 90 to 97% of the people were, population was of third estate, and only 10 or even less than 10% of the population was of first and second estate. Now, these first and second estate were clergy and nobility. Although they were not even 10% in the system, they were owning 60% of the land. Okay, and only 40% of the land was there with the third estate. No, that is also okay. But the most important thing, the most important problem was that these people, the first and the second estate people, just because they were clergy, just because they were belonging to nobility, they were given lot of privileges. Okay, now in the modern world, we cannot talk of privileges which can be given by birth. We only get privileges if we are doing something meritorious. But unfortunately, in this period of time, in the French Revolution time, these privileges were given to them by birth. So they were born with a silver spoon. Because if you are clergy, if you are in the nobility, you automatically get all the privileges. The most important privilege apart from the other privilege which they got was that they were exempted from paying taxes. Exempted means that they don't have to pay any kind of taxes. Just imagine the people, those who are just 10% owing 60% of the land and having lot of money, filthy rich people, they don't have to pay taxes. All the burden of the taxes was borne by the third estate people. So naturally, it became a cause of misery, it became a cause of revolt, it became a cause of discontentment among the people of France. Till now, they were paying taxes. This is how the routine was going on. But there were reasons why Louis XVI, again, if you go back, why Louis XVI, the ruler of France during that time, was compelled, obliged to increase the taxes that I'm going to cover in the next section. But they were compelled to pay more taxes. Already they were overburdened with the taxes. And now if someone will tell you, okay, you have to pay more taxes, although you're not having that much earning. So there can be two things which comes into your mind. Either you agree to whatever is happening, or you will try to go against that system. So as we have discussed that this was the main reason why these people were very dissatisfied. See, we can see these social classes of people, the privileged estates, that is, you can see in this figure, first is your clergy, second is your nobility, and third was everyone else. Okay, now first two estates were the most privileged people. They were holding all the high offices, whether it is near and dear of the king, all the administrative positions, or in the army, or in the bureaucracy. They were holding all the important position in the French society. They were exempted from paying taxes. Okay, they didn't like the Enlightenment ideas and who threatened their power. This also I will explain it to you, because in the French Revolution, apart from the politics, apart from the economic, apart from the social causes, the most important role which is being played by the people were the philosophers. You know, these philosophers have enlightened the mind of people so much that they were ready to fight for the injustice, and ultimately they were successful in achieving the justice. As we have already discussed, let us have a recap of first estate people. Means the people, those who belong to Roman Catholic Church, or you can say that they were the clergy people who owned 10% of land in France. Second estate people were the rich nobles who were just 2% of the population, and they owned 20% of the land. Remaining land was owned by the richer member of the third estate. Now the third estate, if you see, 97% of the population, 90 to 97% of the population belong to third estate. Among the third estate, as I've already discussed with you, bourgeois, again it's a French term. Most of you were having French in class 8, so you know the meaning of bourgeois. Bourgeois means someone who is very privileged. So you can say that they were the upper middle class, which included your bankers, factory owners, merchants, professionals, artisans. Okay, they paid high taxes. Now there was no equality in paying taxes. Again, I will go back to that topic when we will do the chapter, when we will take the chapter further, that it was such unjustified idea that those who used to pay more taxes had got more chance to become the part of government. Now in our country, it is not like that. It is equality. UAF, Universal Adult Franchise, everyone has got equal right to vote, irrespective of their caste, color, religion, social, economic background, or the status. Now these people, they were educated in the Enlightenment ideas, and they were as rich as nobles. Second class of people within the third estate were the poorest and the hungry. Some were working as a trade people. Some were apprentices. Apprentices means the trainers. They were basically the trainers, the laborers, the domestic servants. And third were the peasants. 80% of the France population gave half their dollars or their income to nobles and the church. Okay, so these are the three estate of people which I have discussed with you. Let us first have a short recap of first estate, the clergy people, that is the church people. Second estate, the nobility, the aristocrats or the near and dear ones. And third estate is your commoners. I always give the name as commoners because among commoners there were bourgeois, or there were big businessmen, there were workers, and there were peasants. So before I will further proceed towards this chapter, you have to understand what kind of taxes these people were compelled to pay. Okay, so these people were compelled to pay the taxes. You can see in the figure, first tax was tithe. Now what is tithe? Now tithe is a tax which was levied by the church. Levied means to impose. So tithe was a tax which was levied by the church, which consists of 1/10 of the agricultural produce. So all the third estate members, suppose if I have suppose if I was able to cultivate 100 kgs of wheat. So out of that 100 kgs of wheat, 10 kgs of wheat, I have to give it to the church as a tithe. So this is called as tithe. Okay, understood? Tithe means a tax which is levied by the church, which consists of 1/10 of the agricultural produce. This was the first tax which was given to the church. Okay, now second type of tax is taille. Taille is not that TAIL or TALE. Here it is TAILLE. Now this tax which is being paid directly to the state. Now students, you all know the meaning of state here. State here does not mean the state in which the French country or the country of France was divided. State here clearly means government. So who was the government here right now? The government of Louis XVI. So the second type of tax which was paid was taille, which was paid directly to the government according to the earning of each person of third estate. Apart from that, these people, they also have to pay so many indirect taxes. For example, there were so many indirect taxes which they have to pay on the everyday consumption articles like salt, tobacco, etc. And all the burden of financing the country was ultimately on the shoulder of third estate. So that is why these people were overburdened with the taxes. The French society was, you can say, it was not equally divided. Some were getting lot of privileges by birth, while others, they were not given any kind of privileges. Rather, they were forced to pay the taxes. You can see two more definitions over here. First is your livre. Now, at present, the currency of France is euro, because all the European countries, they have to come up together and they have started using the currency that is euro. But in the old regime, again I am using the word in the old regime, till 1794, the unit of currency in France was livre. Why I am telling you this word livre? Because when we shall be discussing about Louis XVI, when he was overloaded with the debt, how much debt he was having was all in livre. So livre was a currency which was discontinued in France in 1794. Okay. So these terms, out of new words, what you have to understand here is what is livre, who were clergy. Again, I've told you, clergy were the group of persons invested with special functions in the church. And then the two kind of taxes which were directly paid, that is the tithe, second is the taille, and some indirect taxes which they have, it was levied on the daily articles, consumptions like salt, tobacco, etc. Now here the things were not ended. Apart from all the taxes which these people were paying, they were also obliged. They means the people of third estate. They were also obliged to pay first and second estate the feudal dues.
Now this feudal due is a very new term for you. Students, you have to understand the concept of feudalism. So I will again take you back to the medieval history. Feudalism. Now what is feudalism? Whenever the word feudalism comes, whenever the word feudal comes, we only talk about land. That is the property. Okay. Now if I take you back to the history of medieval Europe, okay, during that time, as you know that there were always very, enmity between the Muslims and the Christians, and the holy war which they fought among themselves most of the time are known as crusades. And what was the main reason for the holy war which they used to fight? For that area of Constantinople, which is present day modern Turkey. Okay. Now Muslims claim that because their Allah was born in that particular area of Turkish Empire, so it belonged to them. Roman Catholics believe that yes, our Jesus Christ was born in the area of that Jerusalem, so it belonged to them. So there was always holy war which was fought in the form of crusades. Ultimately, in the medieval Europe, the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Turks became so powerful that they were able to defeat these Roman Catholic people from the area of Constantinople. So they were forced to shift from Constantinople. Now, when they were forced to shift from Constantinople, they went to Rome. There they built the St. Peter's Church, which is considered to be now the largest church in the world. Okay, and these people, when they went there, they were not left with any money, but only the huge pieces of land where they have been. So now for king, only the medium of exchange was land. So a new society was created with this feudalism that is known as feudal society. Now in that new feudal society, the society consisted of first your king as the head, second is your lord, third is your knights, or you can say the people who will having a special task which they have to do for the military, and fourth are your serfs or peasants or villeins. Okay, so when king was not left with any money, and suppose he's being pleased by someone's gesture, so what he used to do, he used to give that person the huge piece of land. For example, the king is pleased by the lords. Lords means the kinds of ministers or the nobility. So what he will do, he has given him a lot of land. So do you think the lord himself is going to cultivate that land? No. What he used to do, the lord used to give those land to the knights, who in return used to promise them to take care of them in their security. Knights were, because they were the military commanders, so they themselves are not going to cultivate that land. So they used to give the land to the peasants, who in turn used to ultimately cultivate the land, and whatever produce was there, ultimately whatever produce was given from that land was again given back to knight, and then to lord, and then ultimately to the king. So this is all the concept of feudalism which was continued in France as well. So these people, now if you come back to the present situation, that these people, they also have to pay the feudal dues, because if sometimes they have taken any loan, they also have to give away that loan, and that loan was given in the form of feudal dues. Now because peasants are not having any land, so how they will give the feudal dues back to these people? Sometimes they have to render services to the lord, for example by working in the field, by working in the houses, or maybe they have to serve in the army or in the public roads. So this is the first reason, the first social cause. This is the first social cause which I have discussed with you about the inequality in France which was existing in the society of France. So I hope this is clear till here. Next thing which we are going to discuss about is the political reason. Now what are the political reasons? What are the reasons why Louis XVI was forced to increase the taxes? My first question. My second question, why people hated Louis XVI, why they did not like Louis XVI. So if we go back to the history, if you see Louis XVI, he ascended the throne of France in 1774, and he was just 20 years old when he ascended the throne. When he ascended the throne, he did not get a very good condition in which he got the throne. Okay, he got lot of debt with him. Already when he sat on the throne, the financial resources of the country was completely drained. There were various reasons behind it. Okay, first of all, there was the the person to whom he got married, that is Mary Antoinette. She was not a very wise lady because she often interfered in the politics of Louis XVI and would always give away bad advice. One of the advice which she gave to the people, as there was a lot of crisis in the country, people were not getting the food, even food to eat. Someone suggested that, Madam, we don't have bread to eat. She said, give them cakes. So this was a kind of foolishness for which she was known as. Okay, now Mary Antoinette, she was the belonging to the royal family of Austria. Okay, and she used to waste lot of money in the festivities. She used to waste lot of monies in the extravagance and ultimately the luxurious life which she was leading. Okay, here if we talk about Louis XVI, already he has taken lot of loans. Okay, they have helped 13 American colonies to fight against a common enemy, that is Britain, in their war of independence. So ultimately, when they have already taken the loan of 1 billion livre. Livre, I told you, the currency of France. So they have taken the loan of 1 billion livre. Okay, now the state started demanding, the creditors from where they have taken the loan, they started demanding 10% rate of interest. Now Louis XVI, not being very wise ruler, not being very much towards the people of France, he decided to increase the taxes. Now already the third estate, you can see they are overburdened with taxes. On top of it, when Louis XVI decided to increase the taxes, from where he is going to fulfill the from where the people are going to give the taxes to Louis XVI. So they decided to revolt. They decided to start a revolution. Okay, so this was the political cause. This was the main reason why the people of France, they decided to start a revolution. See, this was a long driven cause. Okay, now children, one thing I would like to tell you, that a person can live without the luxuries of life, but the basic necessity of life, like what we all are facing at present because of the coronavirus, is the poor people are facing that they are not getting 2 meals of the day also. The same kind of crisis occurred in France also, when people have to stand in long queues for the bread. Okay, and bakers exploited the situation. They hoarded the supply. The wages which these people were getting was very less. Okay, the price of the bread became so high, unaffordable by the poor people. Okay, so instead of looking after the subjects, Louis XVI was busy in his own luxuries and the festivities of life. So ultimately, what comes into the mind of the people were the riots, that is the food riots. This ultimately led to the crisis which occurred in France. You can see in that term also, which I already gave you, that is the economic troubles. Okay, so this you can see here, the bread. Yes, because the staple diet of the people of France is bread. Okay, so this crisis which occurred in France ultimately came to be known as subsistence crisis. What do you mean by subsistence? We have done in class 8. You can see the agriculture chapter. In agriculture chapter, the word subsistence means for self-consumption. So when the people did not get the basic needs, the basic means of livelihood are endangered. Okay, then we call it as subsistence crisis. Okay, I will be explaining you in detail. Maybe if I get disconnect, we'll continue with the recap in the next class about subsistence crisis. What are the reasons for the subsistence crisis in France, and how did people dealt with the subsistence crisis in the France? So let us have a quick recap of what we have discussed till now. We have discussed what French Revolution is, what is revolution, how French Revolution served as a legacy to other parts of the world. Maybe it is India or any other Asian country or African country, which became the main base for their freedom, because they wanted to now have the same kind of qualities of liberty, equality, fraternity, what France was given to them, what France has given to its people. Then we have discussed about the day of the French Revolution, that is 14 July. 1789, the day of the revolution, the storming of the Bastille. I shall be explaining you once again when we will do this topic of the day of 14th July 1789. Then the French society, which I have discussed it to you, which was very, very unequal in its manner, because the division was like that only the privileges were given to the first and the second estate, third estate being not given any kind of privilege. Then you have to understand the definition of these words, which I have already explained to you. That is livre, clergy, tithe, taille.